All right. Hang on just a second. Hey, now hold your dang horses. All right. I'll use, ow, electricity. Why is this? Oh boy. Okay, so go to me. Because what I want to do, I want to stick this thing on my TV. That's what I'd like to do. That's what I'd love to do. Yes, here, do it. Go on the TV. Yes. See, that's what's up. That's what's up, my friend. Okay, and then I can do like so. Yeah, cool. Okay, I'm ready. Jeez, what's going on, guys? This is Adam. I'm hoping that I'm doing this right. Is my main deal. I'm hoping that I'm doing this right. I don't know how to do this. I've done it like twice before. We're trying to go live right now. Going live. I am sick. I got a cold. I got to clear that out real quick. Don't plug earmuffs. I may have to do that a lot. I've been working really hard. I've been doing several jobs, getting some money, getting my base going, bringing down the rates, broadening the base. And I haven't engaged much with the community. I noticed, I did my comments, I'm seeing what everybody's saying. I was really worried because I released some new raw material, and I was like, whoa, so I was kind of scared about how people would respond. But the reactions were totally great, and I really appreciate people who've been keeping up with my stuff. So I feel great now, and it turns out 3 days ago, I received a response to my 2 videos at this point discussing David Long's non-reductionism concept. So if you're not up to speed on that, I'll just bring you up to speed real quick. I might do that in a second. Let me bracket out. Let me go meta a little bit. It is really cool. I'm really delighted and excited and overall affrighted that somebody has made a video about me, about unThinkMe. Whoa! Somebody in the world deemed it necessary to spend their time making a video about this. Yahoo! That's amazing. That's incredible. Little, to take baby steps. This is cool. Somebody's talking to me. Somebody's talking to the channel. So we're talking. So I'm live. So I'm now into the minefield here. Non-reductionism is a sort of competitor. It's like to integral theory. It sort of takes integral theory and says, I don't like everything about this and the curation of it, and I don't want it to be necessarily tied to the Ken Wilber person and legacy and all that. And so I'm doing a different meta theory that has a lot in common, that borrows a lot of elements from that, but that is trying to divorce itself from that. And he made a video called Pros and Cons of Integral Theory. I made a response to that video expressing a lot of positive and negative things. And then I watched his whole channel and had a lot of positive and negative things to say about it. So you can watch those if you like, if you aren't up to speed with this. I hope to take this video and kind of make it into a more cogent, coherent video. But I thought the best way to do this is just to jump right in here. I'm sure, I guess I don't really need to set much of the context, because this is, by the way, a 2.5 hour long video about me. Wowie. Or I don't know how it fills that time. I hope that it has like my clips in it, or that's cool. I see that there is an AI generated me. I think that's me, and that's hilarious and awesome. They did a great job there with my hoodie and my hair, and great job. And then as you see, this is our main beef here, is Wilbur is putting the amazing Buddhism logo, slogan, label on atop the pyramid of development and saying, hey, I'm going to hoodwink you guys. And I am all for it. I'm like, yeah, Wilbur, you replace reality with Buddhism. So this this is essentially the discussion we're having, but it gets really deeply into nuts and bolts. I do also want to comment, I dig the brand colors. You got the purple and green, unThinkMe. All right. Does this work? Let's see if I can make the video play. And is this legal? We'll find out.
What's up? I am David Long, founder of Non-Reductionism. I am here today to give a video response to Adam from unThinkMe. He has made a couple videos about non-reductionism, reacting to some of my videos and putting some of his ideas and concerns and criticisms on the table. And I haven't really had a chance yet to respond. I've been working on trying to get some of the basics for non-reductionism up and going, and so I've been a little bit more focused on that. But I definitely do want to spend a little bit of time and respond to some of his points. He has
True. He needs to make like the overview video, and I'm so honored and pleased that he's taken the time to do this with me. This is cool. We're both saying we want to get out there and debate, and this is the best we can do right now. But it's getting there. We're getting there.
put a lot on the table, so there's a lot to respond to, and it's going to be a little bit difficult for me to be able to unpack all of it right now to really feel like I can be as thorough as I would normally like to be. So if there's any other things that we want to get into later, we certainly can. I would be glad to have a talk with him on his channel and talk about non-reductionism and deal with any of the criticisms that he wants to bring. I do have certain standards and criteria for who I debate, and Adam
I actually, and I want to say too, I was thinking a really nice starting place would be the particular hook of free will and determinism. I think that might be a really like soft entry point just to kind of jump in, is what I was actually, if you hadn't made this video, that would have been, I would have jumped out and said that. Now I'm wondering why on my TV you're still talking and on my computer you're not. Okay, we'll figure that out. We'll edit that out in post.
Has met these criteria. He has engaged in good faith. He's made content where he's put his ideas on the table and made it clear what he thinks about them. And now I can respond and deal with some of that stuff. And then if and when we can have a further conversation, it will be more informed by things that have already been put in plain sight. And then we'll be able to have a more productive conversation that gets into the details, and we can really start to tease some of those things apart and make better arguments for what's going on with them. So as you can—
True. Also, I love how he is in the capsule that like Darth Vader re-energizes in as he does this.
Can tell, this is a long video, and as you can probably also tell from the speed that I'm talking, that this thing is jam-packed with content. I've actually put a lot of work into it, and even though it's long, I'm really focusing in on some of the main concerns that Adam put on the table. In particular, the topics that he seemed most interested in as it relates to our differences, like what do I think about spiritual experiences, what is transrational, and some in-depth criticisms I have about Integral's relationship with religious ideas in general. So I hope you're ready and interested to get deep into it. Here we go. Before we get started, one thing that I would like to ask is that you try to understand my tone in context. At this point in my life, I'm trying to do this project in a very serious way because it's very important to me. I care very deeply about getting ideas right because it shows up in how we act and what we do. It has a big effect. So getting it right really matters. This is a very serious project to me. I do try to be lighthearted in some of my videos. I try to be playful. It's a little bit more difficult for me in the context of disagreements and misrepresentations where I feel like I need to clarify and I need to be critical. Like in general, I really don't want to talk about Integral. I really don't want to talk about it. I'm talking about it here because I know there are going to be some people who come from this perspective and there needs to be things said about it. But in general, I intend to teach these ideas as if integral theory never existed for many reasons. For one, I think it's easier to learn a new set of ideas fresh. I wouldn't want to teach you a set of ideas that I think is wrong and then correct them. I think it would be easier just to teach you what I think is the correct thing. And I wouldn't want to encourage you to go check out or know about ideas that are wrong that I think are bad. So why would I tell you about it? Also, I don't know how much longer Integral is even going to be around. I feel like it's fizzling and failing. And so I don't want to define non-reductionism in opposition. I want to just treat it like it's something new. Yeah, going back to
This is a fair and real criticism. It is quite possible that Ken Wilber and his integral theory style will fade into obscurity, and my response to that is to try to reinvigorate it, and that's just where I'm going with it.
To the issue of tone. I'm very serious about this project. It's a very big deal to me. I take it very seriously. I'm glad to talk with Adam and keep it light. I'm not going to be calling him names or treating him badly. I'm not mad at anybody who doesn't agree with me. It's your choice to agree whether you agree or not. And all I can do is try to make a case for it. But I will tell you bluntly and plainly if I think ideas are bad or wrong. And we already know that people don't like it when you tell them that their ideas are bad and wrong. And so it's certainly very possible that people will get upset upset or offended by things I say here, and they might not like me. But I would like to think that we're all passionate seekers of truth here because we care. And so if I'm critical or I'm harsh, it's because I care, and it's because I think I have good reasons
Are you
to.
guys all being passionate and critical here? It looks like there's two watching. Are you guys passionate and critical here? I feel like we can do it.
Be critical and harsh. So I would just invite Adam and his audience to continue to listen in good faith and to take what I say seriously from the perspective of a person who really cares deeply and has thought a lot about these ideas. Don't take it as a spiteful or hateful attack on anybody, because it's really not. There are certainly many things that I don't
Look
like.
at us, David and I are sweet people. That's you gotta you gotta factor that in. We're Barracuda, but we're very sweet and good faith, and we're really just motivated by the quest for knowledge.
But I don't like them because I find them to be harmful or hurtful or not giving people their proper due or not being fair to them. Some people might say that I am not fair to Wilbur, but I do think that I'm fair to Wilbur. I've learned a lot from Wilbur, but I think that he's also earned disrespect. And there are plenty of reasons why even people who have brought good ideas to the table or who have brought contributions are worthy of disrespect and not being included or not being talked about well. And I think he's one of these people. I don't like him, so I'll just tell you that honestly. At this point, I don't like Wilbur, and I don't like Integral, and I don't want to be associated with Wilbur or Integral. I've already said why. I've already said why in my video about why non-reductionism is a better meta theory. And some people think I'm being harsh, but I'm actually restraining myself. I could be a lot more harsh. That's not bad faith. Bad faith is when you misrepresent a person and you imply some kind of negative intentions behind what they do. And I don't assume negative intentions behind what he does. And I represent his ideas correctly. When I say, for example, that his model is corrupted, or when he corrupts the project, what I'm saying is he's not applying good standards, and so it ruins his project. Therefore, the project has been corrupted. I'm not talking about like corruption, like people took a bribe or something like that. I'm talking about the integrity of the project has been ruined. Anyways.
So okay, I'm just trying to put that together because maybe that isn't so. It's surprising to say like I don't like Ken Wilber, like I don't like Integral. No, Integral I could see, but like I don't like Ken Wilber, like is such a personal thing to say. It seems like, and it's like I guess what you're saying is it's that he is such a bad influence on his model and the way that it's used or applied that it creates personal disdain for him, and his lack of like response to you or the types of arguments you bring to it, you feel like those aren't being responded to, and this leads toward like a impassioned personal like dislike of him. I guess I could say I think he's the sweetest guy, and I think it's always frustrating that like people that you look up to don't necessarily always pay attention to the same things as you, or find the same things is important that you do. I guess I've had that disappointment, not with Ken Wilber, but in a lot of different contexts. Anyways, yeah, it all makes sense. That's cool.
I want to talk a little bit real quick about how I came to Integral. I was very influenced by Joseph Campbell. I was also influenced by the Zeitgeist movement, and I was excited to try to help birth a better system. And I
apologize for double speeding, but I am going to double speed a little bit. Sorry if your brain works differently.
thought the integral community might be that system. I was also working on my own version of a theory, as I talk about in the video about why non-reductionism is a better meta theory. I talk about how I already had a more archetypal and symbolic version of meta theory. I included a lot of the same elements, but I was still young. And when I came across Wilbur's work, I was impressed by it and thought that he was doing it better. And at the time, like many people, I was still confused about cosmology. I had definitely had plenty of experience with state training. I've definitely had nirvikalpa samadhis. I can stop my mind. I can definitely do mindfulness. I'm actually really very good at state training. I've done a lot of psychedelics, and I did them differently than most people do them. Most people do them in a way that's like, I'll do the drug and I'll see where it takes me. I'll see what it wants to show me, right? My approach to psychedelics was much more of like an amplifier, and I was going to practice my mental power under extreme conditions, let's say. So self-control and mental focus and state training in these kinds of contexts. I do have different approaches to state training and different ideas about sacred naturalism that I'll get get into more later. But yeah, I was very interested in religion, very interested in comparative religion. I had studied many different traditions and I had done a lot of practice of meditation. So I'm not this person who doesn't have experience with these different states. So when I came to
Okay,
Integral,
cool.
I was really actually interested in comparative mythology or religion. I was really interested in spiritual experiences. I didn't yet understand what the truth of cosmology was. I was very sympathetic to a Buddhist perspective. In fact, I was really interested in learning about a whole bunch of different kinds of Buddhists and Buddhism. I was listening to lots of gurus, and it was actually through being interested in the work of Andrew
I
Cohen that I
I guess
found
I'm having an issue here then. So if you've experienced Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it seems, I mean, you didn't say, but it seems like you would have experienced that in the context in which Nirvikalpa Samadhi arises, which is a mythical, like as you would say, mythical mystical practice that it seems like you're dismissing from your philosophy of reality. So this is kind of where I'm getting hung up. Is like, okay, if you've experienced that and it required that context to experience it, are you then going to propose ways of experiencing Nirvikalpa Samadhi without a grounding in these things that you were very interested in the past? It seems like you're kind of cutting off a part of your own story and a part of your own, like what informs your own views, but that remains to be seen. I'm kind of looking forward.
his talks with Ken Wilber. And so it's through religion and Buddhism and thinking about these things and having had these kinds of experiences that I found my way into the integral community. If I was a materialistic reductionist, why would I ever be interested in integral? Why would I have contributed in that space for almost 2 decades? Also, a thing that you might not realize based on just looking at the current non-reductionism channel is that I
Oh, I
actually
don't.
have
Where are all these? Am I losing my mind? He has that many videos. Like, did I miss this? Okay, what? Seems like I go to it and there's not that many videos. All right, all
have
right, all right.
something like 260 YouTube videos. When I rebranded, I made all
Oh,
of
here we
my
go.
old videos unlisted. However, as I have said, I did start a new I Am David Long channel, which is linked on my non-reductionism channel that has a lot of
Okay, so like he did unthink me for like years, and he then was like, okay, screw that, get rid of all that, and now he's just select. Okay, that's foreboding for my future outlook.
the old videos that I made. And I made videos like the What You Talking About Wilbur series, where I talk about these problems of his issues with deep science and why his religious ideas don't hold. I made videos about the pre-trans fallacy. I made videos about semantic compatibilism as a way of understanding free will versus determinism. I made
Semantic compatibilism. Okay, yeah, yeah.
a video about integral religion and what that should really look like. I've made tons and tons and tons, hundreds actually, of videos
Well, I you can't blame me for not seeing videos that aren't on there.
about these topics already. So, yeah, I need to re-express a lot of these things in non-reductionist terms,
Okay.
but I think you're missing a lot of the videos that I've actually already made, and I can link some of the relevant ones in the description of this video below. And you can just explore and look through a lot of that stuff. I made sure that it was still available. But yeah, I was in this integral
Is his avatar an AI image of him too?
community for almost 20 years. I have engaged in it very deeply. I've talked with and debated many of the most intelligent people in the community. I've made a bunch of critical work, and I've also made work that talks about upgrade.
So why in the world are those video what is so they are still somewhere? They're on like a different channel now? Like it seems like pretty cool. Like a yeah, I think people should watch those videos. Probably, I don't know.
There's a lot of upgrades. And I think if you better understood my work and my perspective, you wouldn't be saying some of these things that you're saying about what my view is in your video. It's a little bit strange to me that Adam isn't more familiar with my work because for a long time, I was definitely the most prolific integral YouTuber. I was very loud in the integral community, posting stuff all the time in every single integral group pretty consistently. That's not to say that I was super popular. In fact,
No, I can explain that very simply. I have not really cared about integral community until about like 3 years ago. It was all just kind of a personal thing, and I participated a very small amount in community events. Like I was in the Integral Seattle thing, and it very quickly just seemed like kind of a waste of time for me. And yet the theory always held with me. I was always fond of the theory and Ken Wilber's books, and I always read his books. But it never really turned into a thing where I wanted to enter a group of integral people who found it as well and were interested. Like that's a very recent thing for me. I was like an artist at the time, and I know you've been an artist, filmmaker, and musician as well. I was interested in bringing integral into what I was doing on the ground there. Um, and it just seemed like that the integral thing was so infrequent that you really it just wasn't really possible in any of my locales to like interact meaningfully with anyone, and I still kind of question that whether it's even possible to have like really meaningful interactions via the better technology that we have now, and the greater interest, I would say, in these sorts of things, if not the Wilbur style, but the idea of a meta theory, and bringing together all these various perspectives on consciousness into a theory of everything.
A lot of people didn't like me, but even a lot of the people who didn't like me were talking about me all the time in the integral spaces. So I feel like Adam must be pretty new to integral theory, because if he would have been
The
around
community stuff, yeah, not the theory.
6 or 7 years ago, he would definitely be familiar with my work. And it's
Like, I mean, I participate in a lot of aspects of culture, and in my opinion, integral theory has always been a non-significant cultural force. Like, I have never seen any. I didn't like aspire to what Ken Wilber was doing. I thought it was like a kind of beautiful piddling thing. It was a small time like alternative. It was like indie rock to me. I didn't. I've never seen integral anything as like powerful or like I've never had role models in integral other than just like the people who like of the Ken Wilber community. Like those people model, some of those people model the ideas pretty well, but it's not like a thing. Yeah, I don't know. I guess the idea that to be into integral you have to like care about conventions and seminars and things like that. I just never really have. To me, it's just a philosophy. It's just a philosophy of reality that could be used to organize communities, but I've never really seen that done effectively. And a big part of my journey is to try and do that in real life in like a mainstream kind of way, in a way that like it becomes recognizable to some segment of the population. I just don't think that any existing force has achieved that yet.
seems like he just found out about me when I launched the non-reductionism stuff. And when I look back
Yes,
at the
that's
age of
true.
his videos, it seems like he kind of came on the scene soon after I left, after I quit. So I think as I was going out, he was coming in. And
True.
I'm very sympathetic to being a big Wilbur fan, because I was a big Wilbur fan. I've literally taught hundreds of
Although,
thousands.
I mean, I don't. Fan's such a tough word for me. I don't really like. I don't really like to think of it that way. I guess I don't like. Fan is such a weird word. I don't like
Thousands
it.
of people integral theory. I was a huge advocate for integral for a very long time. That's why I'm not really happy with this way of framing it like, oh, maybe I just don't understand. It's not that I don't understand. I understand very well. I'm very familiar with all the work. I'm very familiar with all the perspectives, and I'm very familiar with what the critics have to say. And there's plenty of valid criticisms against Wilbur. When I, for example, get upset with Wilbur for not dealing with his critics,
This, I mean, we're gonna do this, but this to me is like, I guess I've already explained, because the community doesn't matter to me. My personal relationship with Wilbur doesn't really matter to me. I don't see that as a real thing. I guess I don't really care if he's a jerk or if he does things that are annoying or if he doesn't engage with things that I wish that he would. Like, I don't really see myself as having the right to dictate that. So this whole section to me is just, it kind of seems like a non-issue. It's like, I think that like Mick Jagger sucks because he doesn't return fan mail, kind of thing. I don't know. Let's see where it goes.
it's not like I want him to specifically debate me. There are many people who have made these criticisms, and I had a whole community with hundreds of people in it, and tons of leaders in the space got on board with the Integral 2.0 thing that I was trying to get going. So there are tons of people in the community who have criticisms. Now, as the leader of a community myself, if there were consistent themes of criticisms in my community, if I claim to be the best at processing tensions and integrating different perspectives and things like that, what I would do is I would do a meta-analysis of all the different criticisms, and I would make sure that I address them all. That's just reasonable. It's not like, oh, I need to preserve my time and my energy. I don't need to just debate everybody or something like that. Fine, you don't need to necessarily debate everybody, but you probably do need to address the growing criticism in your community. You probably do need to say something about all the issues that people are consistently coming up with around it. And instead, what Wilbur did was he said there are some valid criticisms, but some critics aren't good critics, and those critics can suck my dick. What he should have done is the opposite, and to be like, some critics aren't good critics, but let me talk about the reasonable good faith critics and deal with their criticisms. But I think the reason that he didn't do that is for the same reason that Jordan Peterson doesn't come out and clearly say that he's not the regular traditional kind of Christian, because some things might be better left unsaid from the perspective of business. Like if you're trying to sell books, if you're trying to hold together community, sometimes some ambiguity and plausible deniability could be good. It might be better to leave it ambiguous than to make it clear and draw a line in the sand that's going to make a significant portion of your community break away. But if you only talk to yes men who tell you that you're the greatest genius that has ever lived, then in every bit of media that exists, you have people singing your praises and it makes you look super smart and fantastic. But on the other hand,
I guess we're moving on from JP. I gotta just say, like, increasingly, I do just kind of find him to be a shill in an echo chamber. As of quite a while ago, like definitely early on, I thought that he was saying really cool stuff, and I thought it was in alignment with Integral. He's just kind of getting more like weird and crotchety, and I'm not really interested in him anymore. And I think it's like it's a similar problem, really. Like, I think it's weird to try and mislead your audience, to try and say like, I want to appeal to people who believe in God, so I won't tell whether I believe in God or not. I find that disingenuous, although it's not necessarily problematically disingenuous, but it's a thing that doesn't appeal to me as much. I'm a kind of a simpleton. I like people to just, come right out with it, I guess. So we'll see how that goes.
And if you talk to a person who's a critic and they're able to make a good point against you or to expose that maybe you were wrong about something, then that's a crack in your armor. And it potentially makes it seem like this other person might know better than you. And then maybe you're not the greatest genius that has ever lived. So,
but I will say, of the things that I have humored that have been of interest to me over the years, I have looked into these criticisms, and I find them to be the good ones, the ones that like kind of work. I find them to be of a similar nature, and I find, I think that what you're doing is definitely like bringing those into alignment.
Part of the reasons why he doesn't address any of his critics is because it's his way of seeming like he's too big and important and you're nobody. And so if he even acknowledges somebody like you, it's in a way treating you like you're relevant and you matter. Like imagine how you would feel, Adam, if I basically treated you like I was too big for you. Like why even bother with this person? Then you just seem like...
Okay, but like that would be perfectly reasonable, though. I would be fine with that. A lot of people are just too big for me. I'm little. It's like, that's fine. I wouldn't, like, I really respect and appreciate that you are acknowledging me. That's dope. But I mean, I see all this as just like a gracious kind of thing that's happening. Like, I'd love to, anyone who wants to waste their time with me, come on down.
Some random person on the internet, then I seem more serious than you. Like you're beneath me and you're not worth my time. And yeah, you're talking about me.
I'm like in therapy because I do this too. Like you can ascribe like all this personal agency and like your narrative to what's going on with Wilbur's dismissal of these particular critical voices. And that may or may not be true. I honestly don't know. I can't know what Wilbur's thinking. He might kind of be like a little bit narcissistic about his position or the relevance of critical views to his pursuit. I don't really know. That it's an interesting question, and I like to engage with it, and I'm not at all closed off to the possibility of this. It's an interesting inquiry. I don't really find it too... I think that engaging with things is not really what he does. I just see him as a person who like comes up with this stuff. It seems to work best for him.
But I can't be bothered to respond to you. You see how that has a certain type of an effect to make one person seem big and the other person seem small, like you're talking about me, but I can't be bothered to even address it. It's a way of trying to maintain a legacy where you've never been proven wrong or you've never been actually caught looking bad, because any of your critics, they just don't get it. They just don't understand. They just can't see your genius, and you don't have time for that. It's strategic, and I think, frankly, it's kind of cowardly. And that's why I think that it is important important to respond to good faith critics because I'm not trying to set myself up as the final ultimate authority on everything or too good to be able to talk to people or I only talk to people who agree with me. I'm not afraid to discuss these ideas with you in public because I think that my ideas are good enough to stand on their own integrity. And I'm not afraid of having them challenged because I think that the challenge will only further prove why my ideas are good and strong. And Wilbur's ideas are not good and strong. And I do think that it's a toxic cult-like community when the people in the community keep on being like, who do you think you are? How dare you challenge the great Wilbur? And this is the response that you get from many people in the community. Like, you think you know better than him? You must be an egomaniac for
Like I get what you're saying. It's like I experience this in every aspect of my life. Absolutely every aspect of my life. Every job I've ever had, even in like my friendship cliques and stuff. I mean, this is just like level 3 shenanigans in level 4 gatekeeping and stuff. Like I think I don't take stuff like that personally. I do take it seriously. It bothers the hell out of me, but I don't think you can take it personally just because that's like the nature of the situation. Like I don't. Yeah, I guess you're expecting Wilbur to fix that. Like Wilbur is supposed to repair that about his infrastructure.
even daring to question the great genius.
But I questioned the AI Ken Wilbur. I had some questions for the man, and could Wilbur come on to the show sometime? I'll ask the tough questions, sir. We'll we'll rock out and but I mostly want to understand involution better. AI
I think
didn't
the
do
first
that good of a
most
job.
important place to start is about non-reductionism's relationship to other meta theories, integral and metamodernism, in particular integral. And I think when we talk about this, one of the first most important things to tease apart is what we're even talking about here.
Yeah.
Because one of the problems with both integral and metamodernism is they have both effectively conflated their brand name with the stage with their ideas. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's important to be able to make some distinctions here. It means something to be in a second tier stage. It means something to have a brand and a worldview and a theory. Non-reductionism does
It means something to be at a second tier stage. It means something to have a brand, a worldview, and a theory. And those are separate
doesn't
categories.
call second tier stages the non-reductionist stages. I don't think that's good. We talk about personal and collective integration. And in terms of yellow, we talk about implicit integration and explicit knowledge of meta theory.
Okay.
So over here you have the stages, and over here you have our brand and our theory. Non-reductionism is a brand, non-reductionism is a theory, and second tier stages is what we talk about. Yes, it's a meta theory, which is representative of second tier stages, but there's a reason why we don't conflate the two. I don't think it's good to talk about your brand name and your theory name as the stage name. There could be other versions of second tier theories, and we don't want to act like our theory is the only one. Now, there currently aren't, in my opinion, but that's a separate topic. So when we talk
Fair. I mean, I think this is kind of just splitting hairs. Yeah. I mean, I could go either way on that one. Calling level 7 the integral stage or like integral theory is the level 7 theory. In particular, I just think it's a PR issue. It's like people find that cheesy. It makes it look more cult like to the very superficial first blush viewer. So like, yeah, I don't necessarily have any issue with that. It's fine.
talk about non-reductionism as being a continuation of integral. If we're talking about the idea of the project of the stage of second tier integration, then yes, historically it is pushing off of integral theory. It is inspired by integral theory and its aspirations of trying to do integration. Non-reductionism is definitely inspired by integral theory. So in that regard, it is taking the best of integral theory and we're trying to do the integrative project better. I see us transcending and including and replacing integral by doing what integral said that it wanted to do, but never actually accomplished. So
Integral the brand, not the theory. Okay, yeah.
it is a continuation or a further development of integral, if by integral we mean the stage. But in
The
terms
stage, if by integral, it's a continuation of the stage, and it is an abandonment of the brand. Okay.
of the brand and the worldview. It is a separate brand. It is a separate worldview. We have completely different ideas, completely different perspective on what's happening in the world and what's going on with it. Non-reductionism and integral are different
Completely different. Okay.
worldviews. Sure, lots of worldviews talk about a concept of self and a culture and have systems of laws and talk about consciousness and what reality is and all these things. They include a lot of the same factors, but they all understand them very differently. And to continue to just be like, well, look, you have a map and you talk about these factors, so you must be the same thing is not true. Sometimes the way I talk about it is pizza and pasta. Like pizza and pasta might have the same ingredients, but they're completely different dishes. I tried very hard to make this case in my video about why non-reductionism is a better meta theory. Integral, as a worldview, is Advaita Vedanta and it's idealist. They are idealists who think that consciousness goes all the way down and back and that consciousness is the ground of being. We don't think
Okay.
that. We are naturalists. We are emergentists. We don't believe that consciousness is the ground of being. Consciousness is an emergent property and it's incredible
Okay.
incredibly rare in the universe. It didn't exist for most of the universe, and it doesn't exist in most places in the universe, and it won't exist forever. It really represents the blink of an eye in a Goldilocks zone in all of the context of the universe. It's incredibly rare and it's incredibly special. So we have completely different ideas about what consciousness is, about what reality is. And so
Yeah, because that's looking at it from an external perspective. From an internal perspective, it's not rare at all because the only way you're having an experience is if you're the consciousness, and that makes the apparent rarity of it kind of change perspective. If you're looking at it from the internal, it's always a component of every reality that is experienced. If experience is the ground of being, or consciousness, so I guess there's no, I guess just like there's no concept of ground of being. That's just, there isn't that. Um, Consciousness is emergent. All right, I'm walking along.
when we think about things like the quadrants, the levels, the lines, the states, we think
But
about them all
I
differently.
mean,
When it comes to the
I
quadrants,
think that we get into like, this is just sort of like philosophy stuff, like classical philosophy stuff. Why does consciousness emerge in a universe? Why does that occur? What kind of universe does that? It seems to be a conscious universe. That the consciousness occurring is like, what does emergent mean? A thing emerges due to preconditions, but a thing doesn't like. So now we're using emergent in the sense of like a systems emergence, right? Like something that was like novel and unprecedented, but the universe generates novel and unprecedented things is a property of the universe. That's I think that's a point that we would disagree about, and I don't really understand. If consciousness being rare is a counterpoint to that, I think levels just covers that. There's more of lower levels than there is of higher levels, but there's no experience of anything at those levels that would be like recognizable to what we would recognize as the experience of being.
we don't think of them as perspectives. We think of them as ontological aspects of reality. When we think of the interiors, we don't think that they go all the way down and back. And it's not like I think that the quadrants are some kind of trivial, slightly useful self-help tool. No, the quadrant
Yeah, this is an issue that I'm making, that without a more classical spiritual model or understanding of states, it seems like the quadrants are a very limited tool, and the full understanding or comprehension of why the quadrants exist, why they're important, and what they mean about the experience of life or the experience of experience. It feels like it misses the point. This was a criticism I made.
are something that we talk about when we do philosophy. We have a thing in non-reductionism called primacy, nested quadratic holons. We don't just say, oh, you have to include all four quadrants. No, we understand that the quadrants relate to each other differently as it relates to different philosophical projects. And you have to do the philosophical projects in the correct order, so that way they all harmonize with each other and that one isn't done.
Wait, so think, feel, do? Yeah, but why is it just religion, politics, identity, morality? So okay, identity. Identity's pretty massive. Is identity not in the true and the beautiful? All right.
at the expense of the others. We have a much more in-depth and nuanced approach to the quadrants than Integral has. Our epistemology is better. We have scale. We have primacy. They don't have scale and primacy. And their integral methodological pluralism isn't as good as 4P, 4Z. So we have these things that Integral doesn't have in relation to our theory. If you want to try and compare non-reductionism and integral theory, you should try to understand what non-reductionism actually is, what it's actually saying. Don't just be like, oh, you guys have a map and we have a map. You clearly got some of your ideas from integral. Therefore, you're just doing integral, but you're doing it in an orange way. That is
yeah. I mean, you can dictate the terms. I am actually just like, I'm a twig in the wind. Like I see a video, I go, hey, I want to respond to that. I'm not like, I'm not claiming that I have like a huge research allotment or anything like that. I'm claiming that I am going out here and sharing and thinking and spreading joy. That's kind of like my gestalt for what I'm doing is like, it feels very, very different from like your gestalt. And like I don't even know if you're like conceptualizing really what I'm up to. All that, like, I don't know. I'm not really sure because I don't know what you were doing before. And it's weird to me that I'm being held accountable for work that that you're not featuring. Like, I'm responding. This is good research. I'm responding to the videos that existed on your channel, and I'm responding to this. And I don't think that's inherently flawed. I think that it would be creepy for me to like dig more into your past or anything. I was just kind of, I see you as another person to discuss this with, and as that relationship grows, I'll probably come to learn a lot more about you. But yeah, I think this is kind of an interesting way of looking at debate culture in general. I find that in debate culture, it's very common to approach a situation without really knowing the other person and just responding to the perspective that they're offering in a particular context. I think that's like a way that we do this these days. And I am like, I don't really see, I think that can be useful research for you, with, again, the caveat that like, yeah, I'm not familiar with everything you've done. I'm even more usefully, I'm just responding to what you're doing now, and that may tell you whether you're honoring the past material or whatever, because I'm not accessing it. I might eventually. We'll see. I'm looking to the future though. I'm like, yeah, it's like you're introducing like new ways to use the quadrants. That's of interest. That I didn't see that video on the channel currently, so I don't know what that's all about. It's like, yeah, if I privated all my videos right now, moving forward from that moment, I would never expect anyone to be familiar with my videos. That seems reasonable to me. I don't know. Yeah.
not the case. It's an unfair assessment of what's actually going on. Our theory is better. Our applications are better. We have an extra element. It's a whole different thing. Maybe another example
We got the better model. We got the better
could be
application.
Christianity and Islam. Islam is a completely different worldview than Christianity. Do they include some of the same factors?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they do. But Islam is way more advanced. It actually has several very important differences from Christianity. Does it still keep the Old Testament stories? Yeah. Does it still keep the story of Jesus? Yeah. But it thinks about them differently. That's what we do as well. So if you're going to think about non-reductionism, I would invite you to try to understand what it actually is. Try to understand what its actual positions are, what it actually says, what it actually brings to the table. And I know I don't have a lot of the videos done yet to really fully unpack a lot of these things. I'm still working on that. That's all.
I mean, so this is a fair point from each of us. You don't have them out. I'm not familiar with them. That's what's up. I want to make my videos better so that people understand my positions better. And I I release stuff that I want to replace with other stuff eventually. So I mean, I can relate to that.
all going to come. But in the meantime, instead of making assumptions like, oh, well, you must have never been in one of these states, that's why you don't understand them. That's just thinking about it in the context of assuming that your worldview is true and that anybody who doesn't agree with it, they must just be lower or they don't understand or something like that. The claim is your worldview is
Represent. um, yeah, this is like a question of etiquette, really. Like, that I'm just responding to what you're saying. Um, it doesn't mean that I don't like honor what you might think, or yeah, like I think you do make assumptions based on the material presented. I think that I am making assumptions based on the material presented.
wrong and our worldview is correct. And I would suggest that you don't just start from saying, oh, well, you must just not really know what we're talking about then. How about consider the fact that
Yeah, because like on your channel, the discussion of states is very minimal, and the discussion of states that I see is very. It takes it in a very different direction from the integral stuff. So that's in response to that. They don't seem to be as related to the quadrants. They aren't related to levels in your thing, and uh, I was very curious to then understand how you use the kind of subtle causal non-dual train states. I was very curious about those. There's not any material, so again, we're kind of waiting on the material. In the meantime, if you're representing the states module, then I think it's natural for people to ask questions pertaining to material that has not yet been released.
we do know what you're talking about, we do represent it correctly, and we have criticisms about it. We have criticisms about it that are valid, that appeal to your own standards, that show how you break your own standards. And our criticisms of your worldview haven't been deconstructed. They stand, they beat your worldview. So I would suggest that you take that seriously, take the claim seriously, engage with the rationality to see whether or not that's true. Make
Do I look like I'm joking?
counter arguments if you want. We're totally up for the challenge of that. But don't just assume that it's like, he must just not understand. He must have just never had these experiences. That's not really a healthy peer review. That's just
I think you should. I think you should assume everyone in the world has not had state experiences until you get really good evidence to the contrary. I guess I'm a little bit. I'm a little bit weary of state claims at this point, and so yeah, I'm going to assume that unless I have darn good evidence, I'm just going to assume anyone talking about anything hasn't had state experiences unless I see evidence of it. That's prejudice, man. That's profiling.
just dismissing critics as if they didn't ever really understand you. As a person who was in the integral community for almost 2 decades, for someone who's read all the work, for someone who's listened to all the videos, I have digested all the integral stuff very thoroughly. I know what it is. I understand it. I've had the experiences. I know what it is. And non-reductionism is better. It claims to be better, and it makes a case for it. So before you jump to the conclusion, I just must not understand, know what the argument is. Otherwise, you're doing the thing that you're accusing me of. You're judging something before you really know what it is. I'm not doing that. I know what it is. I'm not strawmanning any of these ideas. I've represented them fairly. You have even said that. My criticisms of these ideas stand. It's not that I don't know, it's that I know better. So look, I know I'm sounding a little bit annoyed here, and it's not really
No, 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 no. Your tone is not at all. There's no issue with your tone. You're doing great. I just want. I think everybody wants when you make the claims that I've experienced nirvikalpi samadhi. Sorry, I stumble over my weird words. That kind of necessitates some sort of backup, and I know that it's like, well, what do I do to back that up? But people want it. People want it. It's frustrating. I definitely receive that energy a lot. I'm sure anyone who ever makes a claim about enlightened states receives that a lot. This is a question of etiquette too. I mean, we need vetting for states, right? I mean, isn't that what we're doing? Fair to say, don't make assumptions, but like, how do you approach the spiritual marketplace today unless you kind of generally assume that a lot of people misrepresent their experience with state practice?
fault, Adam, because you've just been thinking aloud about what you think might be what's going on here.
Right.
And that's fine. You're totally entitled to your assumptions. You haven't really put these out as like final conclusion type claims.
Correct.
You're just guessing out loud. But from my perspective,
Exactly.
it is frustrating because I've heard people make these kinds of accusations a bunch of times. I think about what Christians say about atheists. They say they must have never really known God. They're just being rebellious. They must have never come to church and like actually been in a worship service and like felt God and had that good relationship with God. All these kinds of assumptions about whether or not the atheist really knows what it's like to have the spiritual experiences that prove God. And
Fair,
the
right?
atheists are making the arguments like, no, we have good arguments why your worldview is bad. We don't think that your spiritual experiences actually prove God like you think that they do. We think there are better explanations for what's actually going on here. And we think these religious experiences of yours are not actually good proof for your worldview. And so,
But what they don't say is, here's how you feel God and Christ and Samadhi with scientific logic reasoning